Wonderful. So hello, welcome to the second day of Signature 2020. We're super happy to have all of you here with us. I am JJ Flowers, the Western District Vice President for Membership. And we already did your pronouns and everyone's updated. So today, like I said, we are joined by Erica Pope, our National Vice President for Colonization and Membership. She is an Overture queen, and she's here to kind of talk you guys through Overture and answer any questions that you guys have. So yes. However we want to start it.
Well, thank you so much, JJ, for first asking me to be a part of this experience with the Western District. This is actually the first time I've gotten to do anything like this, specifically with the Western District, so I'm really excited to be here. So I wanted to say thank you to JJ, especially a huge thank you to your district counselors. They are amazing, and they are doing a lot of wonderful things for you, and they have a lot of great plans, and so it's exciting to kind of see it all come together, including this particular event. So thank you to your district counselors, all of your district officers as well. They are rocking out for and to all of you, so thank you. So I wanted to take the time to just do kind of a Q&A, but before we did that, I kind of wanted to go through some things real quick and share, and then just open up the floor for questions that you may have about Overture in general. Some of this that I'm going to share with you are things that we have upcoming, and some other things are just kind of some pro tips. Specifically, the one thing that we are asking all chapters to do is fill out the Tau Beta Sigma membership education form. So if your chapter has not done that yet, please definitely jump on board to do that. And hopefully after this session today, it'll take kind of the guessing out of what we expect you to submit whenever you fill out that form. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Bear with me. Technology sometimes is not my friend, but this is the life we live now, so we're going to make it work. Can everyone see this okay? Wonderful, thumbs up. Okay, so this is just basically filling out the TBS membership education plan. And some things that I wanted to kind of go through first is coming soon, something that was by popular demand when we sat in all of the membership committees for all of the districts, the virtual district conventions that we had back in March and April. One of the things that many of your colleagues on various campuses said that you wanted was the membership candidate workbook. So that's actually something that we will be releasing here, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We actually showcased it to your district officers 2 weeks ago and had a chance to kind of show it to them. We showed it to all the district VPMs, so JJ got to see it even more exclusively than before all of the district officers did, and basically to give us feedback as to how this particular resource can be the most helpful. But many of you had said that you like the idea of having something that you could give to your membership candidates, and lucky for you, we were already kind of thinking that, and so it was great to know that you, the membership, were already on board and already kind of in the same frame of mind that we are. So that is coming, and it will be something that is also uploaded to the Overture Google Drive, where you can actually, as the educator, can get access to the most recent version of Overture. So that is coming soon. If you haven't already, I do encourage you to join the Overture Facebook group. This is basically our landing space on social media for all things national curriculum and particularly Overture. I want to repeat, and I want to make it very clear that you do not have to be your membership educator for your chapter to join this group. This is anyone who is a current active member of a chapter who wants to be engaged and wants to be plugged in to the national curriculum. And so with that in mind, we encourage all of you to join. There will be some introductory questions when you join a private group, and just take the time to answer them. They're very simple. We're basically asking if you're a current active member and what chapter you are a member of. And keep in mind that that's information that we can look up in our online membership reporting system. So that allows us the chance to just basically verify everyone who's in there, make sure that they're students. You know, we love our alumni, but, you know, current curriculum is not really for them. It's for you, the active students of Tau Beta Sigma. So please join the Overture Facebook group. We would love to see so many of you in there. And that's where we, provide announcements and tips and various things like that. We're actually going to start doing a few polls to kind of see what else you want to see from the curriculum and what resources you might want to see as well. So please join the Facebook group. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll try to keep it lively and important for you. So real quick, again, I did want to kind of go through the overview of the form, just so that you have an understanding of what our expectations are. And for those of you who may have been the membership educator for your chapter last year, one significant change that we did make is that instead of kind of asking you questions to answer, what we ended up doing is actually, we knew a lot of chapters already had this information written down somewhere in a document. And so rather than have you kind of copy and paste into the questionnaire, we're just asking you to submit to us that document. We like to be tall beta efficient, if you will. So that was kind of the idea here, is to try to make that system a little bit more streamlined. Obviously hitting the ground running with our new curriculum, we had to try some things to figure out what worked and what didn't. So that being said, this is a list of things that we do expect every chapter to include in that document called Membership Education Plan, previously called Membership Education Program, but because Overture exists now, you already have a program, and now we just need to know what your chapter's plan and approach is. This helps us get to know what your chapter does. So there are a couple of things I did want to pinpoint, but I'll go through the list real quick, and then there's some things I wanted to elaborate on in future slides. So recruitment information, and that basically is the information that's talking about what your approach is. So what groups do you recruit from? What are the requirements? What are the activities that your chapter does? What are your recruitment activities? I believe a lot of chapters use the word rush, which is definitely okay to continue to use that word. And so what are the things that you do to get people interested in Tau Beta Sigma? And so we want you to kind of elaborate on that. Prospective member requirements. So now you've already had your recruitment information, and now you're letting us know like what they specifically have to become hopefully membership candidates. So is there a GPA requirement through your university? Do they have to be in a certain ensemble? We know that some chapters, if your director of bands insists that everyone needs to be in marching band to be a member, then that's something that we want to know and understand so that we have that for our records. Those are just some examples. There could be some other things that we haven't even thought of, and that's why we ask you for the information, just because we want to know what's going on your campus and within your chapter. Bid procedures. So that's basically how do you disperse bids? How do you decide who gets one, and how do you decide who doesn't get one, and then how are those handed out? So hopefully how they're handed out are things that they match. Your membership education calendar, and so this includes from recruitment all the way until third degree. So what that's going to look like so that we can kind of keep up with how many weeks you're going to be going through the process. Membership education roles. So what role do chapter members play? What role does the VPM play, or the educator? What role does the band director in your chapter or on your campus? What are those roles that happen that are significant to the membership candidacy process? Big little system, if you have it. We know some chapters don't have anything like that, but if you do have a system of assigning big sisters with little sisters, what is that procedure? Campus resources, this is something that usually can be found on your website, your university or college's website. And so anything that is a resource for students is what needs to be included in that list. And if you were to go to the application, or I should say to the form today, it would actually give you some examples. So if that's, for health and safety, for risk management, for Title IX, for LGBTQ plus resources, like what are those things on your campuses that are helpful to students? And then finally, candidacy termination procedures. We hope that no one has to terminate their process, whether it be them or by the chapter, but we as a national organization want to understand that step-by-step process, whether it is a person who decides maybe Tau Beta Sigma isn't for them and they in their own process, or if something's not working, or if there's a reason why the chapter feels like someone should not continue as a candidate. What are those procedures to get to that end game? Those are just a couple of things. And as I mentioned, I wanted to kind of pinpoint some different things. So again, recruitment information, which I hope you're not recruiting people like this girl in the picture, like you, I want you. You're coming here. I just thought that picture was so funny, so I was like, I'm gonna put that there. But basically just, you know, the information that's laid out, as I kind of mentioned before. So, you know, what are the steps to recruitment? How many membership recruitment activities do you do? And what is the rationale? How long does it take? You know, those kind of interworkings of your recruitment. And then just making sure that that information is given to your counselors. So one question that has come up over the last couple of days, and it's a great question, is let's say you're a chapter that's already planning to do a spring class, but some of your chapters may do all of your recruitment in the fall. So that's totally okay. What needs to happen is that this form needs to be filled out before you do your first recruitment activity, so that your counselors have a chance to look through those and make sure that those are on the up and up, that those are approved activities. Even if it means that, you know, your counselors know that, even if it's you get it to them beforehand so that they can make sure that those activities, and they can give you the green light to go ahead and do your recruitment stuff, and then they can continue to work on anything else that needs to happen. So if there are activities, which we'll talk about here in a moment, that you need to get through, then they can kind of work with you in a step-by-step process to get everything approved. So that's at the discretion of the counselors. Just as long as that line of communication is open and understood, then you know, we leave it to the counselors to make sure that everything gets approved in a timely fashion for each chapter. Chapter educator information is something else we do ask. We basically want to know who your VPM, or I know some of you use membership educator. I've heard dean of students before. I was like, interesting, that seems way more important than membership education for Tau Beta Sigma. Although JJ just made me a queen, so I don't know. I was gonna say, I didn't realize I was royalty, so all right, I'll take it. But that's actually something that we ask right off the get-go, is like, what chapter is making the submission, who the membership educator is, and a good email, in case even we, from our standpoint, but especially your counselors, because they're the ones who have to work with you on your membership education program, or I should say plan, and getting that approved. So a good email address that you check frequently. So remember, when you're filling that out, just make sure that the address that you check the most is the one that you put in there as your email address. Membership education calendar. Again, a lot of people do ask the question about what all should be in there. And like I said, from beginning of your recruitment all the way to the end to third degree. And so one thing about the calendar that's really important is that your process, the cap of how many weeks you can have is 12 weeks. That is the national standard. The shortest it can be is 4 weeks, because we know some schools actually do require you to be done in 4 weeks. It's a lot, it's fast, but that's why Overture is written in a way to allow for that. And then you almost kind of segue into like a continuing membership education plan. So one thing I do want to kind of put out there is that any breaks that fit into the middle. So for example, if you're a spring class and you have spring break in the middle of your process, that counts as a week. So if you're going to do 9 weeks and you have 1 week in the middle, the other 8 are membership candidate activities, and that 1 week in the middle counts to make it 9. So keep that in mind whenever you're thinking about what your dates are. The other thing is that all of your membership candidate activities from beginning to end need to happen in the same semester. So no going over from fall to spring. And I know that if you're on a quarter system, it's a little bit different. Your calendar looks a little bit different. So you just need to make sure that it occurs in continuous time of school, if that makes any sense. I know Epsilon Kappa, I believe, UCLA, you guys are a quarter school. So just make sure that everything happens in a row and doesn't like cross over into basically into a whole nother year. So from 2020 to 2021 is not going to be accepted. And if you have any other questions about your membership education calendar, ask your counselors, and if they don't know, they'll ask us, and it works out okay. Sarah's giving me the thumbs up. She's like, yep. And then your chapter's membership education plan as a whole is literally the reason why, and the rationale that we're asking is this, because we literally want to know the who, what, where, when, why, and what your chapter's approach to membership education is. I guarantee that the way you do something could be really beneficial and helpful to another chapter. So in a long round way, the submission of your membership education plans each year helps us keep up with what's going on in your chapter, but also if you're doing something that's really successful in your chapter that could be helpful to another chapter, or vice versa, if we see something happening in another chapter that could be successful to you, that's information that we share with like our chapter visitation assistants, because they're out there doing the visits, visiting your chapters. And so having this information is helpful to us, helpful to your counselor, so they know how to be the most helpful to you as active chapters, like what they can do in their role to kind of help you get where you need to get, or help a chapter achieve what it really wants to achieve. So yeah, it serves so many different purposes, but this is just a few of them. The campus resources part, again, most of this is on your university and your college website, and anything that you can think of. I think right now the big one that every website has is COVID-19 campus resources. So this year we expect to see that on your campus resources list if there's anything like that. So don't think that you can't add that. Anything you could possibly think of that a student would need, like a brand new student would need at their disposal. That's what we mean by campus resources. And if you have a question about anything, feel free to reach out and ask about that. Chances are I'd rather have more information than less information of the resources that are available to the students on your campus. This next part, that's what I want to talk about, is the activity request. And so in this particular moment, and this is kind of a change as well, is if you do any activities, or are there any activities that you would like to do that are not already a part of Overture? So some examples would be like if y'all do joint ceremonies or big little ceremonies, or any other activity that again is not already pre-programmed into Overture. That's something that would need to be approved by your district counselors. And one thing that you can do, if you look at the form, we give you the option, if there's something that you want to do that's not in Overture that you want to supplement for one of the Overture activities, that actually is something that you can do, but the activity itself still has to be approved by your district counselors. So if you have a question about anything in that regard, if you're not sure, reach out to your counselors and they can let you know if that's something that they need to approve. In most cases, it probably is something. If it's something that has already been approved by your counselors in a previous year, then we don't really necessarily need you to submit that again. If you have that information, if you know that it's been approved before, because we keep those things on file. And if there are things that are missing right now, then we'll definitely fix that this year to make sure that we know if there's an activity that's already been approved by your counselor that that you don't have to resubmit, because we don't want you to have to resubmit for the same activity over and over and over again. We just want to be like, yes, the Omega chapter does X, Y, Z every single year. Okay, cool. And that almost be kind of your history, a history piece for you. If we know that, for the last 5 years, you've done this one activity. By year 5, it's a tradition. So there you go. And that's pretty much all I wanted to cover in terms of the membership education plan. form and what we expect from that and that kind of thing. August 1st is when, if you are going to be doing a fall class this semester, which I know many of you still might not know what band plans are or what your plans are in terms of your university. I know I work at a college myself, and I know that a lot of universities are like waiting to the very last minute to make a decision just so that they have enough time for maybe COVID to kind of flatline as much as it can, or the curve can flatten as much as it can. And so they're waiting for the last absolute minute. So definitely keep your eyes and your ears open. And I'm sure it's been said a couple of times, but if you have anything to submit, submit to healthandsafety@tvsigma.org if there's any new information that comes from your university or school. And if JJ, if you could put that over in the chat, healthandsafety@tvsigma.org, in case you need to send that off. So with that in mind, I wanted to open up the floor for questions about curriculum or Overture or anything along those lines. And we'll see if we can kind of go through it together.
I have a question kind of building off what you just started saying. We had our whole like recruitment thing kind of almost set in stone. We had everything figured out. And so I had my MEP fact form, everything was submitted. And then like 2 days ago, our institution like dropped a bomb on us, like, we're changing everything. And so in this kind of a situation, how can I best adapt so that I can keep you guys informed, since a lot of the stuff that's on my MEP fact form is not going to be correct anymore?
Erica, you're muted.
There we go.
And I'm just going to jump in on one point. Be sure to update me with all that stuff, everyone, because I can give it to the people. If you're not sure who to give it to, I can give it to the people that need to know. And I'll let Erica.
Yeah, no, that's perfect, because that is literally real life content that happened this week with another chapter. And their VPM reached out like, what do we do? And so the things that we've, of course, instructed your counselors and we've instructed your VPMs with as well is that if you make any changes, like you've submitted and you thought everything was good, and then, yep, bombshell, Northern Arizona was like, let me not do this. So what we want you to do is, we don't expect you to like resubmit the form because you did your part. But what you can do is submit your updates. So if you like make changes to your document, submit it. I'm going to put it over here to overture@tvsigma.org, but also send it to your district counselors and JJ. So when you send that email, send it to all those personnel, because it'll go to your counselors, it'll go to JJ. They're the ones who really need it because they've got to, work on it and make approvals. But also for us at Overture, it actually goes to every member of the national curriculum team, so that we can put that in our like brains that, Alpha Chi needed to make some changes. So yeah, just send it to all of those individuals and it'll be good to go.
Cool,
I would like to add on, so as one of the people receiving those changes and needing to look over them, if you could please make it easy for us to find what was changed in the document, whether it's a highlighted title or a different text color. Those documents get really lengthy and we don't want to have to reread the whole thing to find, oh, there's a couple paragraphs changed.
And Valerie, if you have any concerns or anything, we can like meet and work through that, because that's like something that's totally out of your control, and I don't want to put that stress on you. So I'm here for you as well.
Cool, thank you.
Absolutely. What other questions do we have about Overture in general?
I had a quick question. You talked about resources at the school being included in the MEP. Does that get shared with candidates? What's the purpose of sharing that, just besides like having a database of what different schools offer?
So that's for us, but we also expect that to be what you are going to be sharing with your membership candidates as well. The reason why is because we know that most times, I would say probably 8 times out of 10, your membership candidates are freshmen or first to school, like that, they're still new to school. And so especially if you have a fall class, that might be information that they may need a reminder of. of that information. But that also helps us keep in line with what is expected on each campus. So yes, it's really for your membership candidates. And so anything that you give to them, especially because soon you'll have a workbook to give to them. And if you wanted to add that as part of the workbook, because I know some of you like to print it out and give it to them in like an actual notebook and like something tangible. And this is going to be designed toward that's an option, and also an online option. So it'll be a fillable PDF if you're like, especially right now, since most things are going to happen virtually, or if you're, you try to hug trees as much as you can, like me. And so just the idea of being able to fill it in and save it. So that is what that is for, is to make sure that that information is available to your membership candidates.
So Erica, I have a theoretical question just in case anybody has this question but doesn't want to ask. So let's say we submit our MEP form and then we find that there's an activity that we said we wanted to do but didn't work out. How do we go about submitting those changes?
So that is something that you'll work with your counselors on. It's kind of the exact same situation where if there's something you already submitted, I'm assuming you're talking about something that maybe you did last year that didn't work out really well, then definitely want to resubmit it this year. And just like Sarah said, you might want to point out the changes so that they can kind of compare and contrast to what was submitted last year and was approved, and what those changes are. Because you want to help your counselors out as much as possible, because not only do you help their sanity, but also you help the sanity of yourselves trying to wait, because they're trying to go through from page to page with a fine-tooth comb. And I know a lot of chapter VPMs get really nervous if they don't hear back about if their stuff is approved, within, I just sent this 5 hours ago, is it approved? Give them some time, be patient. Know that they also have real lives beyond just being your district counselors. Teachers and working in academia, all of us, we all do that. And so, yeah, just making sure that you can get things approved in a timely fashion, and it's streamlined. It helps them be able to kind of get through it so they can get it back to you quicker.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question again.
Okay.
I am not an Overture expert, for those of you here who probably know more about it than I do, just because you've used it in the past year. I was looking over some information about dates and deadlines that we'll be talking about later this week, and it talked about making sure candidates know the cost of joining. Is that embedded in the curriculum? Is that something we need to just remind VPMs about?
Absolutely. And the big thing there is just to remind them that when they are membership candidates, the 125 national initiate is all that they are responsible for to finish. So if you have a fall class, 125 is what they're responsible for. And then in the spring, if you have a chapter due or something like that, then they can be responsible for that. But if let's say you have a spring class, they won't be responsible for any chapter dues until the next fall or the next school year. So that is absolutely something we need to make sure that we put in there. And I will tell you one thing, is that we too are going through the current Overture to make sure that if there are any changes that need to be made, that they are made. So there will be a new edition. There aren't going to be large changes, but there will be some additions here and there. And we'll actually, when we do that, we'll let you know, there will be kind of a guided document that tells you what changes were made or what additions were made, so that everybody has that information. So don't think that we're just going to throw this at you and figure out, so where's Waldo, figure out where it is. It's not going to be like that. We will let you know what changes we made. For example, we're going to kind of beef up the alumni organization stuff just a little bit more, as a request from TBSAA, but also that's just really good information for you to know of how you can continue to be involved in the organization beyond graduation. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and just making sure that we reiterate the things that we say and talk about, and sometimes it's word of mouth and just actually putting it in writing. So like things like dues, which we put that in there, but just making sure that everyone has an understanding of what that expectation is. So yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to clarify. So candidate classes that go through in fall are, each member pays $125. Spring candidate classes, they don't pay dues until fall of the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Do they pay the $125 that fall?
Yeah. So what they do is they pay. Sorry, I know that probably like confused you. So everyone, whenever they become a new member, they pay $125. That is the new initiate fee. But some chapters have like a I'll use that example, like a $50, Omega fee or Alpha Chi fee. That's just like, as a member of this chapter, you have a chapter fee. But when a membership candidate is brand new and is about to cross into the sisterhood, they are only responsible for the money that goes to the national organization. And if they just happen to be a fall, and a lot of chapters will charge that chapter fee in the spring, then at that point they're an active member, so then they can be held responsible for that. Whereas let's say you have a spring class, they're not going to be held responsible for any extra chapter fees on top of that 125 until they pay actual active dues, which are 105 to stay active in the fall. And that is a misconception. A lot of people get confused. Like, if you have a spring class, do they have to pay that 105? And the answer is yes, because the fiscal year ends. And so that is something that spring classes, we encourage you to make sure that you make that very, very clear to your membership candidates. If you do a spring class, that, the fall semester right after that, to stay active, they are responsible for the $105. How many of you were a spring class, like as an active member? Yeah, I was a fall, but now my chapter does spring. And the first time I did, I was like, that's just weird. And then now I'm like, man, that makes so much sense, because band in itself, like marching band in itself, is a job. And I know y'all go to much larger schools than I went to. And so
That's what makes it fun, Erica. Having to do band and process makes it
so fun. And even then, looking back again, I mean, I went to a small school, but still it was intense. So woo to my people from the fall classes, but spring class, it's just really good for you to make sure. And hopefully y'all were a part of that, like people let you know your spring years that moving into the fall that you would have to pay the active dues for that school year. So definitely want to make sure that you spell that out to your membership candidates so they can kind of budget for it or save up for it or whatever they need to do. Yeah, absolutely.
So to be super, this is a diverging, different question. For the membership education calendar, the 4 to 12 weeks, is that after people get bids?
So yes, that absolutely does. Like when they have gotten bids and they have accepted. So when the process actually starts. So pop quiz, I'll see how much you know, how good you are at Overture. When should module 0 take place? Anybody want to take a guess?
Before first degree.
What did you say?
It's before first degree, right?
Correct. Yeah, good. Yeah. Because the reason why we say that is because if you know everything that happens in module 0, it basically gives them the chance to say, this isn't for me. And so that gives them the chance to before they go through a ritual to be like, this is too much responsibility or that kind of thing. But way to go, Valerie. Good job. So yeah, another pop quiz, when should the membership candidate registration form be filled out?
Within a week of completing first degree?
Yes, Sunny! Get it. Awesome.
the best test so far.
I was gonna say, you guys are killing it, man. What am I here for? I'm gonna go. Like, no, yes, that's wonderful. So yes, membership candidate registration form within 7 days of first degree. Absolutely. Yeah, cool. All right. I gotta see if I can stump you. Okay. Okay, we're gonna call this kind of a real life like scenario kind of a situation. So your chapter has an activity that basically is it's something that you do jointly with your brothers. It's not always, basically it's something that like you do every year. It's the ceremony where you put together like you take your bigs and your littles, and it's like they find out who their little sisters are, and you find out who your little brothers are, and they find out who their big brother is, and you find out who your big sister, or they find out who their big sisters are. So I know that was a lot of words. Woo. With that in mind, is that something that you would need to get approved, true or false? I know I'm not gonna stump you on this one.
True, but you said earlier that if it's something you do every year and it's gotten approved before, it should be okay, as long as not many changes were made, right?
She had the caveat, that's correct. So if it's something that has been approved before by your counselors, you don't need to, so it is true, but the way I pose it is also false, because it's like, if you've already approved, like had it approved, then you don't actually have to like get it approved again. It's something that is, we've got it in your file, like this is something that Alpha Chi does every year. So way to go, Valerie was listening, man, she's like, I'm on it. Okay, what other questions do you have for me about Overture, about national curriculum, anything?
So, do you have any suggestions for recruiting? So I am doing a workshop on that tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But just from the pro herself, the queen herself, how do you suggest that they navigate, or just a couple like suggestions on how they navigate digital recruitment?
So a big thing that I've encouraged, in fact, I sat on a meeting very much like this with all of your athletic band directors for CBDNA, which was an interesting experience because we were presenting like this, and then I hear about it from band directors like, hey, I saw you on the CBDNA, it was so great. I'm like, this is weird. Okay, like people that are my friends who are college athletic band directors. But the same thing that we said to them is the same thing we said to you. This is the year that your personal touches are going to be important. And your storytelling of why you joined this organization are going to be important. So what I've encouraged a lot of chapters to do is, of course, social media is a great way to get people interested. When I mean by the personal touch, and some chapters already do this, so now you just need to amp this up during the time of COVID-19. So for example, what I've heard a lot of chapters already do is that they start almost kind of like a preschool or pre-summer band, like a pen pal kind of situation with your incoming freshmen. And you just write something personal about like why you chose to go to university, and some really fun facts about yourself and fun facts about the university, and why you joined Tau Beta Sigma. And I can say that I was a product of that. My older sister was in Tau Beta Sigma and also went to the same school, but she was far removed by the time I got there. And so one of the things that stood out to me is that the Tau Beta Sigma chapter, they were allowed, which you just got to make sure this is okay with your director of bands, that they gave them the list of addresses of incoming freshmen. And so I got a really lovely card from a member of the chapter, and it was just like, you're gonna love it here, it's gonna be great. If you need anything, which for us, it was like, if you need a ride to Walmart, let me know when you get on campus, and I'll make sure that you can get there, get your groceries, those kind of things. And so now during the time of COVID-19, I think having some of those personal touches like that, game nights are a thing that I think are going to be really, really important. Or doing kind of like some kind of skill kind of a thing. So like having a virtual cooking session, or master classes, if you will, or having one thing that I'm going to try to start actually nationally for Tau Sigma is like a reflective walk and talk about, because we're going to be 75 soon. And so people would tune in, either Zoom or if you wanted to do a call-in kind of a situation, and it's just a conversation. And so everyone's walking at the same time, kind of getting some exercise, but also like talking about the organization. And so those are just some really quick things that you could do, or having a Netflix party, Netflix watch party. There are so many things like that that are going to be important while we're trying to navigate that, but the personal touches are going to be, I think, the most important. Just meeting them where they are, even if virtually, to find out who they are, and also being able to just let them know that you're here for them, even though you're in a virtual setting. So yeah, those are just a few things, and I'd love to hear from y'all too if you have any ideas or if you have things that you're thinking about doing, because we are collecting that information too, and you'll get some information. I know you probably heard from your counselors here pretty soon from the national organization, some more guidance and things on as we move into this new semester of school, and COVIDing while non-banding and while going to school and matriculating and figuring out what 6 feet actually is. So yeah.
And I can definitely send you some of our brainstorms from tomorrow's session if we come up with anything super cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that y'all are doing that, because that's actually something Adrian and I were talking about today. We were like, we should really think about doing kind of, we stole a page from another organization. They're doing what's called a recruitment hackathon. And so what it is like they have like these think tank groups that come together, and they are basically just going to talk about how do we recruit during virtual recruitment in COVID-19. And we were like, we have some brainy kids in all of our districts, so you might be hearing from us really soon about like what that could look like. Maybe not a hackathon, because I'm like, that's illegal, but finding some way to really kind of tap into just the good ideas that I know you have, and being able to share those across the nation of Tau Sigma. So, yeah.
Something I'd like to suggest is our district council spent time brainstorming and choosing social activities for this week that we thought would get people getting to know each other. And that is a challenge with having new members in your band that you don't see in person. How do you get to know them in a way that's meaningful? So I would encourage you to come to our socials this week, one of which is a food making activity, #Rice Krispies. And then something that maybe JJ could use for tomorrow is we had a bigger list of brainstorms that might help. And I'm thinking of this now, so I'm going to say it now. Just maybe start brainstorming how can you show or complete service projects that then people could see and learn about digitally, since that is so core to our organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if there were a real life situation, I know that there are schools that are going to be kind of hybrid, where you're allowed to be on campus, but some of your classes are going to be online. And of course, we want you to make sure you follow your university rules first and foremost, and of course the rules that are happening in your state. I know every state's doing it a little bit differently, so whatever's happening in your area, please follow those. But one thing that I always encourage chapters to do, whether we're virtual or whether we're in person, is to make sure that service is a part of your recruitment, because oftentimes I find that membership candidates, you do all the fun things, like, we're gonna go, we have a tie-dye night, and we have a pizza party, and we have Netflix party in the band room, and they see all the fun parts, and then when they get into the organization and realize that it's a lot of work, that they burn out quickly because they're like, this is not what I signed up for. And so I think it's important, and it adds value to your membership candidacy to make sure that service, because that's who we are, is a part of your recruitment. And so oftentimes I'll see chapters, they'll do a fun one, or they'll do a fun / work one. So like if it's a band hall cleanup, and then the band hall cleanup is ended with like, cake or pie, because cake or pie just makes everybody show up, or whatever the ending can be in that regard. So that's just a really crucial, important thing. And here during virtually, yes, I agree with what Sarah just said, is like figure out what you can do online that can show off some things of what the organization's about, but also things that after COVID kind of settles out, whenever we know, who knows when that's going to be, but when it does come to whatever our new normal ends up being, what are things that you can keep as a part of this process and a part of this program that would be helpful moving forward? You know, like, hey, that was a good idea, that out of necessity we needed to do that, but that's something we should continue doing as we move forward. So yeah. Cool. What other questions about recruitment or Overture or anything else?
Is there something from the national perspective that you see chapters either make a mistake or have a particular difficulty with that we can talk about now to avoid?
What I mentioned earlier is a big one, is starting your process in like November and ending it in March. So it goes across. And the reason why we don't want chapters to do that is because think about it from the standpoint of, especially if you're a semester school, and again, I know quarter schools operate a little bit differently, but like, let's say you are eligible in the fall and GPA eligible, like if your university says you have to have a 2.6, and then you get your grade, you don't do so great on, you know, or you're not doing as good as you thought you were doing, and then when you get your grades and then you finish the process the next semester, you automatically, you know, if you have to be placed on probation immediately after you become a member, and so you kind of start. So it's the idea of making sure that eligibility as one reason why that's important. So I think that's a big one, is just making sure, also just who wants to be a membership candidate like over Christmas break? Like, like I don't want, you know, I think about I'd lose interest, I feel like. I mean, I guess if I were playing reindeer games, then the opposite side of that, which the legendary Kathy Godwin from the Western District, she likes to play from Omega. She likes to play reindeer games. I guess that the reindeer game there could be like, well, but then if they really want it, then they'll stay motivated through Christmas break. But who wants to take that gamble that, you know, you have a class of 18 and you know 5 decide they want it, really want it, and you lose all the rest? Like that's not great, and that's not great for morale just for the chapter itself. Like, you know, we had this many and we just nosedived. So I think that's a big one. I think the idea or getting out of what we've always done it this way. And so that goes back to what I kind of alluded to earlier with traditions, where what does tradition mean? Like, what is that? And why we say 5 years is the cutoff on what something could be considered a tradition, because you have to think about it from the standpoint, which you probably, if you watched the risk management video then that Kathy did, then you know that like it takes, you know, 4 years for something to really be established. Then that 5th year, you know, enough people have left to where they don't know anything differently. And so when it gets to that point, then you can say, okay, this is tradition. But like if you've done it 2 years in a row, that's not a tradition. That is a little seedling just waiting to grow. Give it a little bit of time. So I think that like this is the way we've always done it. Just kind of core things like that. Those are the things that I've seen from a lot of different chapters. The most, more so than anything else. Otherwise, I think with us having Overture, it has really kind of helped even chapters that didn't have a membership candidate process, that didn't have an education like mapped out, have been able to reap the benefit of that. So, yeah. Any other questions? Y'all know everything. Like I said, I don't need to be here. I'm just kidding. I'm happy that I get to spend this time with you. So, yeah. Cool.
The Facebook group,
Mhm.
I looked it up when you guys said it at the beginning, but I didn't find it.
That's okay. It's called Tau Beta Sigma Overture. In fact, let me see if I will find the link and I'll put it over there and
Thank you.
hopefully we'll get in there. Here we go. It's called TBS Overture. I started to call, like, whenever we opened it, I was like, should it be Tau Beta Sigma Overture? Should it be TBS Overture? And that just made more sense. So, but then that could be like Turner Broadcasting Station Overture. No. There you go. Oh, you got it before I did. Quick on the draw there, JJ.
I tried. I was trying to beat you.
You're
But
trying to beat me. You got me. Just
by like half a second. It's okay.
It's all right. But yeah, I mean, and even if you don't have questions now, I think that's maybe, if I had to say, if there were another thing, Sarah, is that chapters don't ask questions and they just assume. Even if you think it's a dumb question, I'm never going to think it's a dumb question because they say there aren't, but there are. So I won't say that there are no dumb questions. There are dumb questions. But when it comes to Overture, especially with it still being such a new thing for us, there are no dumb questions. Like, if anything, like they're confirmations. Like, let me just make sure I understand how this works. And I think that's the most important thing that chapters can do is, of course, acclimate yourself with Overture as a membership educator, but then understanding and knowing that it's okay to not know what's going on and to reach out and ask questions. Like, it's totally okay. So don't feel like you've got to figure it out on your own. That's why we have such a large national leadership team. So, yeah. Cool. Did you just join? You just joined, maybe. You did. Okay, people are just joining left and right. Love it. All right. It's infectious in a good way. Cool. Awesome. How are we doing
If there
on
are
time?
no other questions, this was perfect. It's 3:57 PST.
Awesome.
If there aren't any other questions, I think we can stop the recording.
I will do that right now.